The vet horn came in the night cycle. Everyone on Station Kepler 9 knew this. It was cataloged. Fact. The thing descended from its den in the upper thermal vents every 32 hours, moved through the market corridors like a bad omen in a body, and ate. The vendors left tributes. Not officially. Officially, nothing like that happened on a Class 3 diplomatic station. But the Galhari fish merchant would find his cart 2 stalls lighter by morning. The Simulian spice runner would discover a crate simply gone. The Dravak who sold live protein pods stopped counting inventory on nights divisible by 32. It wasn't violence. The vet horn didn't take. It just stood there until something was offered. Orion had been on the station 11 weeks before he understood this. He'd been running the graveyard rotation on the lower deck commissary. The human's only slot nobody else wanted, the one with the air recyclers that sounded like someone gargling gravel, when the light above his service window went amber. Requesting presence at upper market. Diplomatic threshold. He pulled his jacket. Checked the time. Divisible by 32. The market corridor was empty in the specific way of a place that had been emptied very fast by things with functioning threat assessment. The vet horn stood at the center. Orion had read the briefings. He'd studied the Xeno profiles with the attention of a man who understood that study might be the difference between alive and not. The vet horn were apex tier, a fact stated in xenobiology the way you'd state that water was wet, neutrally, without needing to defend it. 8 feet of dense bilateral musculature. Chromatic dermal plating that cycled through threat display patterns when agitated. 3 sets of manipulators capable of independent autonomous grip at a combined pressure that the briefing had described, unhelpfully, as significant. The briefing had not prepared him for the smell. Copper and ozone and something deep beneath that, something warm and almost sweet, like overripe fruit at the edge of rot. It turned. He stood his ground. Not bravery. Surprise had locked his legs. Its eyes were gold, the same color all the way through, and they found him with the absolute unhurried focus of a thing that had never, in the entire history of its species, needed to wonder whether it was in danger. There was a platter on the nearest market stall. Galhari protein, arranged with the anxious care of an offering. The vet horn looked at the platter, looked at Orion, did not move. 30 seconds. A minute. Orion became aware that his comm was still in his left hand. That if he called Lieutenant Voss now, she would arrive in 4 minutes. He ran the math on 4 minutes in an unhelpful and involuntary way. The veteran's plating shifted. Not threat display. Something else, a slower cycling, closer to the ambergreen that the briefing files had labeled ambiguous, pending analysis. It looked at the platter again. At Orion. Then, and he would spend weeks deciding if he'd imagined this, it waited. Not the waiting of patience. The waiting of expectation. He was thrown back, briefly and without wanting to be, to his grandmother's kitchen table, the way she'd never lifted her fork. The way the food had always grown cold before she'd let anyone else sit without asking if they'd eaten. You first, she'd said, every time. Always you first. The vet horn was waiting for him to eat first. He reached past it, picked up one piece of the Galhari protein between 2 fingers, made eye contact, both of him making the effort, the gold eyes unblinking, and put it in his mouth. Chewed. Swallowed. The vet horn moved. It consumed the remaining contents of the platter in 12 seconds. Then it stood there, plating cycling through something the briefing definitely didn't have a label for, and it looked at Orion with an expression he had absolutely no frame for and would later describe to Voss, inadequately, as satisfied. It left. No tribute missing. No vendor compensated. Whatever ritual had just occurred, the Galhari protein platter was the cost of it, and the station had gotten off cheap. Orion filed a report. Voss read it twice. It wanted you to eat first. Yes. A predator apex tier creature. Yes. Waited for a human commissary officer. Shift lead. Technically. To confirm food safety before it ate. He hadn't framed it that way. It sat badly in his chest for reasons he couldn't name. Safety felt wrong. Wrong size for whatever the vet horn had been doing. Like calling a cathedral a room. Nobody trained it, he said. That's not in any of the behavioral profiles. I checked. Nobody trained it to do what? He didn't answer for a moment. To wait, he finally said. To consider whether. And then he stopped, because the word he kept reaching for was us, and that felt both too large and exactly right. The vet horn came back. 22 days later. Off-cycle. Middle of Orion's shift. It stood outside the commissary window and looked at him through the plexiglass with its gold, unblinking eyes, and Orion, who had by then been thinking about this for 3 weeks straight, reached under the counter and put 2 portions of protein on the sill between them. He ate one. It took the other. They stood like that for a while, on opposite sides of the glass, until it left again. He stood alone in the empty commissary with the air recyclers gargling around him and thought about apex predators and what it meant that one of them had decided, on no precedent, with no training, with nothing in its behavioral history to explain it, that meals were things you shared, that you waited, that the smaller creature ate first. He thought about what it would take for a thing like that to arrive at something like that on its own. He didn't have a word for it. Later, going through Lissa Okafor's Xenolinguistics database, he found one. Buried in the vet horn cultural encoding, listed under behavioral classifications so archaic they'd been marked extinct practice, pre-expansion era. The translation was approximate. It always was. But it came out somewhere close to kin. Orion filed an amended report. Voss read it once, set it down, and didn't say anything for a long time. Outside the station's viewports, the dark held its shape. Somewhere in the upper thermal vents, something enormous and gold-eyed and carrying the weight of a very old word settled in for the night. It had eaten. Someone had eaten with it. That, apparently, was enough.